Horizontal versus vertical investment is something that's not really talked a lot about in the Honkai Star Rail space, and I wanted to make a video talking about the positive and the negatives of both, and then what you should do as a free-to-play or a spender, and then I'm going to give you guys my opinion of what I'm going to be doing as a free-to-play player towards the end of this video. Now, before we kind of talk about the positives and the negatives, I wanted to talk about the terminology of vertical versus horizontal investment, because maybe you guys might not understand what that means. Vertical investment is going to be pulling for eidolons or light cones for your characters and the teams that you already own, and then horizontal is going to be pulling for as many characters as you possibly can and really just ignoring eidolons and light cones. Now, with all that being said, now we can kind of talk about the positives and the negatives of both. So let's start off with vertical investment. Now, the positives of vertical investment really benefit free-to-play players, but let's talk about why that is the case. Vertical investment allows you to pull for eidolons, light cones, and that ultimately buffs the longevity and the power of your DPSs, buffing their damage, supports, buffing their supporting capabilities, and sustains, increasing their sustainability. Now, as a free-to-play player, you want your characters to last as long as humanly possible. And so having more copies on a specific character will benefit you in the long term. The other thing is that if you were to already own a character, and let's just say you lost a 50-50, instead of losing a 50-50 and not owning a character to complete a team, instead of just not owning an eidolon, at least you have then the power and the option to then either choose if you want to continue to pull and try to get that copy, or save that guarantee to pull another character. So as a free-to-play, I personally would recommend vertically investing because of the power that you have as far as for your options. Now, the negative is that you really do not have a whole lot of teams, because you're really just investing into a handful of teams and increasing their power, and not really focusing on pulling a bunch of characters. You're just focusing on your team's total power, which is from the DPS, the supports, the sustains. Now, those negatives are quite small, but again, the fun of these games is pulling for characters, so you will be losing out on not being able to pull for as many characters because you are trying to increase the longevity of the characters that you already own. Now, if you're a whale, pulling for more copies just makes clearing content a lot easier. The other thing that I will talk about that is kind of a positive if you do vertically invest is that you can spend less time farming for a bunch of characters, because now you're just focusing on really min-maxing one character and their builds, so you can focus on making sure their traces are max, make sure that their artifacts and their relics are at a level that you are satisfied with, so your characters can be a lot more well built. Now, as far as for horizontally investing, the positive is that you have access to a wide variety of teams. If you want to play DOT, if you want to play like Acheron teams, or if you want to play HP scalers like the Casters team, or if you want to play the New Elation teams, horizontally investing means that you have access to a ton of characters, which means you can play a lot of teams. That is the fun of it. Now, in my personal opinion, I think that if you're a whale, horizontally investing can be really fun, because then you'll have access to a lot of teams, and I personally would recommend whales horizontally invest because you have the access to the funds, and if you lose a 50-50 and you have the funds to spend money and try to pull for that character, then you have that flexibility, where free-to-plays you don't really necessarily have that flexibility because you don't have unlimited access to pulls now, or you just don't have as much access to as many pulls as someone who can spend money. But the negative really for horizontally investing is that your characters will lose their value faster because you do not have the same level of investment, especially with light cones and eidolons. Now, This is not necessarily a bad thing, but the reason why I say whales probably benefit from this a little bit more, or people who are light spenders, is if you were to buy the battle pass or the daily login, you're going to have access to a little bit more resources. So if you are pulling for a bunch of characters, you're also going to be needing to have a bunch of resources to build all of those characters. And so as a free to play, because you have limited access to resources, you have a finite amount, you cannot essentially build a ton of characters. And so being a light spender, you have access to, for example, stuff that's in the shop, or if you buy the battle pass, then you can allow yourself to build out multiple teams because you have access to those types of things. Now, that is not necessarily a negative, but in my opinion, I think it's a positive, because now you can build more teams. But that is a negative for free to plays. If you want to horizontally invest, is that you're going to have to understand that you might have to skip some characters to kind of pull for as many characters as you can, because not every single character is guaranteed, not like NTE. Now, what would I recommend for your personal account? Now, I can't look at every single person's account and tell them what they should do, but what I can say is that if you take the information that I provided in this video, you should be able to make a pretty educated guess of what you should do next for your account. If you do not have specific characters to complete specific teams, Honkai Star Rail really does punish you for not having full teams. And so if you are missing characters for those teams, I would highly recommend either you pick up those characters to complete those teams, especially if you are trying to vertically invest. I think that having the complete teams is going to benefit you more than having a bunch of characters. If you're trying to horizontally invest, then you just want to make sure you're picking up as many of those characters for those teams as possible. Now, what am I going to do personally as a free-to-play? I had a long time to think about what I wanted to do, because I actually have two accounts. One account I have vertically invested into, and the account that I'm playing on screen is a little bit more of a horizontally invested into account. It's not the most well built out account, but it is getting to the point where it's being fully built out. And here's what I will say. I think that vertically investing is a lot better of an option as a free-to-play than horizontally investing. The reason why, like I said before, is that if you were to horizontally invest specifically as a free-to-play, pulling a bunch of characters means that you need to also build a ton of characters. And if you were to try to build out, let's just say, the new Silver Wolf team, and you don't have like a Yao Guang, and you need to pull for a Yao Guang and a Sparksy, well, now you have to pull for two characters and hope you win your 50-50 to complete out those teams. And so you're taking a gamble on essentially winning 50-50s, and that's not something that you can necessarily guarantee as a free-to-play compared to a spender. And so as a free-to-play player, I am going to vertically invest, because I think that based off of another account that I have, where I have like an E2 Firefly with every single DPS character that I own has their signature light cones, I can definitely tell that their power has stood the test of time. Now, not every single character on that account has maybe E1s or E2s for the DPSs, but the ones that do, I can really tell that there's a jump in power as far as for those teams and how strong they are. So as a free-to-play player, I'm going to be vertically investing into most of my accounts. If I lose 50-50s, then I will probably try to pick up just other characters for a third team. But if you're free to play, try and pick up two teams and then level those teams up from there. And then if there's like characters that could be side grades, or other characters share same types of characters, like a Sunday, you might pick up a character that might also use a Sunday with a Herda or a Finon, and you can make use of that Sunday being used in multiple teams. Then picking up, if you lost a 50-50 and you picked up a Sunday and you have a guaranteed, then that can benefit your account. So picking up small little upgrades to then boost up what you've already have on your account is honestly, in my opinion, a pretty good idea for those of you guys who are trying to increase the power of your account. Hopefully this video was helpful to you guys. I've done a ton of account reviews, and I've helped people with their accounts as far as for what they should invest into as far as for pulling for characters. So hopefully you guys found this useful. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.